Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the Exit Is Now podcast. We are on with a 15-year SEPA, so pretty cool. From the class of 2010, each year at the Exit Planning Summit, we recognize people that have held their designation for a full 15 years. And before we went live on the air, we were talking about how different it is. So you probably have a wealth of knowledge. You began a SEPA 15 years ago and have seen this whole thing expand. So what are you feeling as you sit here on the podcast stage at the Exit Planning Summit and this massive, what I'm calling this year, revolution that the Institute has had? Can you talk to me about your experience a bit?
Yeah, Scott, it's completely different.
Yeah.
I mean, when I went to Chicago to go through the training.
That was your SEPA training in Chicago? Yeah.
There was no industry. The exit planning really wasn't a thing.
Yeah.
Right? We were doing strategic business planning, but we didn't consider the human part of it for strategic life and business plan. That was not a concept at that point. We didn't have any kind of structured curriculum and process. And Pete and Rich did as good as they could from a standpoint of trying to put together a process and approach. But when your dad came on and you guys started looking at how to be able to systematize this so that it could be scaled, it was a completely different ballgame. And you guys have certainly evolved ever since then as well.
Yeah.
At that time, we didn't have all of what you have behind you here, all the different tools and things that are available today. A lot of the software wasn't around at that point. We were all using spreadsheets and checklists and things we developed trying to figure it out ourselves. So it was more of an industry that was in discovery than it was actually an industry that was in operations. And that's a major
that's a good way to
change.
describe it. So when you came out of Chicago, and for those listening that have a lot of people here, right? Like they probably you've probably bending your ear over there because most people here haven't actually gone through the in-person program. But you came into Chicago, you would have been there for like 5 full days. We used to jam from 7:30 a.m. to 5, and then we'd have a social. We might have some dinners. But coming out of that SEPA program, if you can remember back then, what was your mindset? Is like you came back, you just earned this credential, you spent 5 or 7 days in Chicago. How did you go back and integrate? What was on your mind back then?
Yeah, good question. I mean, first we need to go back and talk about why I went there.
Yeah, please.
So you can kind of see how I integrated that back in.
Yeah.
Scott, I've been doing business planning and strategic planning and working with businesses more in a proactive way than the usual reactive compliance approach for CPAs. If you believe Gino Wickman's work and his testing, I'm a 95 on the visionary scale.
Okay.
So I've always had things going on in my head to try to figure out how to be able to make things better, right? How to improve them. And so we had been working with entrepreneurs to try to build and develop a sustainable system, a sustainable business, because realize that those people's jobs, the real underlying mission was to create sustainable jobs for small and middle market businesses. You can't do that if you have only a 15 to 30% chance of that business surviving the death, disability, or retirement of the entrepreneur, right? And so we had been developing our own processes and systems until a client of mine said, "Hey, Doug, you guys do this. Sounds like this organization does that. Have you heard of them?" I had never heard of Exit Planning Institute at that point. When I looked into it, I went there and listened and learned. And they had taken it a lot further than I'd ever been able to take it. And so what we did was take some of that information, or all that information that we had, and start looking at how can we improve our systems and processes so that we can help reverse that statistic, so that 70 to 85% of the clients that go through our processes will be able to successfully sustain the transition of ownership or the succession of management. And so we immediately started implementing that, but it's changed since then. Everything's evolved with the different tools and a different framework that you and your dad have created. It's been a continuous evolution ever since.
Yeah, well, I can remember my dad, when he became a SEPA, and you might have felt this struggle a little bit, is that you came to the Exit Planning Institute, and when you came to get your certification, it was very conceptual. Remember the $10 trillion opportunity?
Sure.
So 15 years ago, we didn't have any walking to destiny. That wasn't around,
That's right? That's right.
And we didn't have any value acceleration methodology. So in these early pioneers, you almost kind of had to be a visionary because you had to come out. And if you were kind of like my dad, he was kind of like, well, kind of what the hell do I do next, right?
Yeah.
And so did you find yourself, and given the community was small, it had to be kind of hard to collaborate with others as well. So to your point, having 80 collaborative organizations that are supporting us today, it has to be a little bit of a massive mind blow for you to say, man, I wish I had all of this back then.
Look, you have 80 collaborators here. we had maybe 25 to 30 people attending the first conferences that went on.
You remember the first conference?
Yeah. And so there's 3 times more people here supporting this than there were actual people attending it at that point. So it's a massive difference. I mean, at that point, it really didn't exist other than in theory.
Yeah.
So what you guys have done is create incredible awareness. I mean, y'all have taken the mission and the vision much further than Pete or Rich could have ever done. They did a great job from a visionary standpoint, but the actual development of scalable systems and processes to be able to do that wasn't a part of where they are.
Yeah.
You guys have done that over the past 10, 12, 15 years,
right,
whatever it's been.
Right, yeah. So what are you most excited about now, right? So you've seen this massive evolution in your 15 years of being a SEPA. Now what excites you about where we're at?
Yeah, it's the sustainability of businesses. My mission and calling is to help create sustainable jobs and for small businesses. I was kind of like a lone wolf in the woods, right? Or lone voice.
Yep.
Now you've created an entire industry that's teaching entrepreneurs how to create sustainability. When those businesses fail to sustain or survive that entrepreneur's retirement, it's not just the entrepreneur and their family that's affected, it's all the employees of those businesses.
Exactly.
It's the customers they serve. It's the vendors that serve them in the community. So the ripple effect is huge. I mean, the small business is responsible for over 46% of all the private sector jobs in the country. Since 95, over 62% of the new jobs have been created in that same sector. So it's an economic engine that's the foundation of our country and pretty much around the world as well. We never had these tools. It was the concept was you just went into business, you worked hard, and at some point you tried to figure out how to get out of your business. It was easier to get into a business than it is out of it at that point.
Yeah.
You guys have created a framework that's made that much more accessible for people. And I don't see that stopping with the baby boomers. This is just a business concept. It's industry agnostic. It's really generational agnostic. It's just a better way to be able to run an entrepreneur.
Glad that you said that. It's like when you guys became SEPAs 15 years ago, we were almost primarily concentrated on serving the baby boomer because at that time it was something like 68% of all the businesses were owned by the baby boomer.
That was a $10 trillion.
That was the $10 trillion opportunity.
That's
Pete and Rich specifically studied baby boomer business owners, and that $10 trillion of wealth related directly to them. Well, now we're finding that it's actually a $14 trillion wealth opportunity when you start studying the next 2 major generations that are owning businesses, primarily being Generation X, today anywhere between 45 years old and turning 60 this year. There's about 43% of them that own the privately held businesses in America today, and the baby boomers have gone from that 65 or nearly 70 down to about I think it's down to about 60 or 61%. And so, I would say that. Do you find that one, if you looked at the market today, more baby boomer business owners are actively trying to exit, and then does that excite you to see that kind of sustainable growth for the younger generations of owners and really taking this on?
Yeah, to me, it's not about the generations. It's about the sustainability of the businesses. And you have the millennials are very entrepreneurial people.
Right.
And the reality is they're going to have multiple entrepreneurial adventures during their lifetime, right? And so the ability to be able to understand what it takes to create a sustainable and transferable business means those jobs can be created and sustained. And so there's going to be a growing number of small businesses. That's the trend. It's not going to stop because we have tools now available in small businesses now that when I first came out of school, only larger businesses were able to afford.
Yeah.
Well, that's not the case anymore. So the technology you're bringing is really how entrepreneurs should be taught. And in fact, that's one of the goals we have is to help take some of these tools and concepts and take it to educational institutions. University of Houston there in Houston, we've been in discussions with them about Center for Entrepreneurship for Family-Owned Businesses to take training and teaching for small businesses to be a different pathway than larger businesses. Because if you go through MBA school, they're generally teaching about how large businesses operate, and it's not a direct translation. And so to the extent that there is a pathway for people to go to a larger business versus the 46% going to small businesses, then they need to have what you guys do as opposed to what's being taught in MBA school today.
Yeah, it's been kind of a really cool first few months of the year, too. If you heard me, if you were in the audience maybe a couple of podcasts ago here at the Summit, I started talking about the opportunity that we have at Seton Hall University and the University of Michigan.
There you go.
That's got to be pretty wild for like an industry pioneer like you that's been around the Exit Planning Institute for 15 years to now see that it's not just going to advisors and we're not just going to owners. We're going to college kids that are that are getting their undergrad. You could come out now in the future. You could come out with a certificate in exit planning that leads you towards your certified exit planning advisor.
I think that's fantastic, and it's
wild.
such a huge need in society. I mean, I was an entrepreneurial kid growing up. Sounds like you were as well, right?
Yeah.
And so when you're going through school, you're learning things that are hopefully going to prepare you for the future. Well, if they're teaching you how to run a multi-billion-dollar international company, that's not the same as a mom and pop or family-owned business. And so I can see a point where those will be degree programs where you can have bachelor's, master's, and PhD in family entrepreneurship, small business entrepreneurship, because it's going to be a lifelong venture.
Right.
Your dad's a serial entrepreneur, right?
Exactly.
You're a serial entrepreneur. It's a disease for which there's no cure, right? You can't get it out of your system. It's something you're going to do. But the tools are now becoming available to be able to give a roadmap for being able to help entrepreneurs make that journey better.
So maybe a two-part closing question. So you've been to multiple. Do you know how many summits you've been to?
You know, I get asked that a lot, and I don't know. I think it's somewhere around 10 to 12, but I don't know.
So point is that you've been to multiple summits, and nowadays there's about 50% of the summit audience that is a first-time summit goer, right? New people saying, look, the next stepping stone for my growth as a SEPA is to get immersed here at the Exit Planning Summit. So given your experience in multiple different summits, what's your advice for first-time summit goers?
Yeah. Come with an open mind and an open heart, because you're going to need to learn a lot of things that you haven't been exposed to, most likely. We all have disciplines or knowledge that we learn for whatever profession that we're in. But the reality is, to be successful in this, you have to first care. You have to have a heart. You have to have an open mind, because you're not there to sell. You're there to solve problems or issues to help them get to where they want 100%. To be, right? So come with those to begin with. And then second is be a lifelong learner. Learn as much as you can. And it's more than one summit a year. It's more information that you can glean in a few days. Also, go talk to people about the resources. We use multiple vendors here for being able to deliver the solutions we have. If we had not been coming to this, and some of them I've actually seen them develop or come on the scenes over the year, but without them, we wouldn't be able to deliver the service that we deliver.
So then the second part of that question is more broadly to the Certified Exit Planning Advisor community, as somebody that's held the designation now for 15 years. If you could bestow some knowledge onto folks that are just becoming SEPAs, what would it be? Would it be similar style of advice?
Yeah, it really would. I mean, you look at the community, and if you think if everybody knew what everybody knows, how much better would they be?
Exactly.
Right? And so you've got a lot of very smart people, a lot of capable people in different industries. I don't know how many lines of service you have in the organization, but in any particular transaction, it's not unusual to have 5, 6, 7 different types of disciplines that come into it.
Exactly
and
right.
Throughout the growth of the business, more than that. So learn what those people do and how they interact with what you do, and then figure out where your seat is at the table, and then work together collaboratively to help the client get there. So it's all about lifelong learning. It's about understanding as much as you can, so that not only you can do what you are capable of doing, but you know how to be able to utilize others with other expertise to help the client.
Well, Doug, I really appreciate you coming on the show, and congratulations, man. 15 full years is super impressive. I really deeply do appreciate you, and appreciate all the commitment that you have, from the summits to just being fully immersed into the Exit Planning Institute community. I really appreciate it.
Not a problem. Appreciate what you guys are doing.
Thank you. Thank you, Doug.
Hey there, business owners. Are you ready for a game-changing opportunity? Introducing the 2023 National State of Owner Readiness Report. Over the past decade, this groundbreaking research has reshaped how we view business ownership and exit planning. This report isn't just another study, it's a deep dive into the evolution of business ownership. It shines a spotlight on the crucial intersection of business attractiveness and owner readiness, revealing the undeniable impact of preparation on achieving successful transitions. With younger generations taking the reins, exit planning is taking on a whole new perspective. Education and awareness about preparing for the future have never been more crucial, and with financial readiness leading the charge, there's a clear opportunity for growth and learning. But here's the kicker. The report shows a surge in exit planning education and understanding, yet many still lack formal transition teams, highlighting the essential role of comprehensive support. So who's got your back? Trusted advisors have evolved, from CPAs to financial advisors, making a decade of significant change in support networks. Ready to take the next step towards a successful exit? Dive into the Exit Planning Institute's 2023 National State of Owner Readiness Report and start shaping your legacy today. The future is knocking. Are you ready to answer? Discover your readiness level at 2023ownerreadiness.com. and take the first step towards a successful and significant exit.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the Exit Is Now podcast. Sitting with our member of the year, Mr. Wally Waldron. I got to spend some extra time with you on the golf course, and I really appreciate that. I was laughing with you when you won the award, because I was like, man, at some point, this is going to come tumbling out. I'm going to ruin the surprise. And so congratulations. Your work has been wildly impressive. It's really something that is what I love about the Excellent Exit Planning Awards of today, with 11,000 SEPAs across the board, across the globe. It's really a peer-driven award ceremony now, versus if you rewind 13 years ago or however long the awards have been going, it was really more of a picked group from our faculty. So now I was joking with all of our award winners that I actually should show you all the nominations. And so the member of the year focuses on really helping bring together a collaborative group of individuals to connect and collaborate. So I'd like to dive into your chapter a little bit, because I think it's next to none. In fact, it was nominated also for one of the top 3 chapters of the year. So congratulations. So talk to me about your chapter and how you made that all come together.
Yeah, well, I think the word is collaboration, right? A lot of these chapters kind of have fits and starts, and what's special about our chapter is that it's a continuation of previous chapters. So Shina Culberson, a former member of the year, right?
Yes,
so,
right.
She stopped at one point and said, "Hey, would you consider taking over the chapter?" And it just felt like a natural extension, right? Well, what's involved and what's that? She's like, yeah, I think, you'd be able to take the baton and make it, even better. Yeah. And so the conversation there behind closed doors was really simple. Help me make sure that this works, and so become president emeritus essentially, and sit on the board and help make it a success. And so the Denver business environment really helps. And so it's Denver has a lot of collaborative energy, right? It's a collegial business environment. And if you think about it being in the middle of the country, a lot of people are first generation Coloradoans. So one thing that happens in the Denver business environment is you'll meet other business people, and it's like, well, hey, what are you looking for? How can I help you? That kind of thing is very early on in the discussion. And so that just serves, that energy serves to kind of, make it happen.
So how are you bringing folks together? When you studied your chapter, you have something like 55 or 60 people regularly showing up to your chapter meeting, which I think is super impressive. In fact, I always remember, you posted a picture online one time on LinkedIn, and there was quite literally people sitting on windowsills.
Right.
And so because the room was so packed and so high energy that you quite literally ran out of seats. So how does that work? There's 28 chapters in the market.
Yep.
And I think people are always trying to bring great folks together, but you seem to be doing it really in a masterful way.
Well, I think it's you hear that whole idea of teamwork makes the dream work, right? And it's kind of a cheesy saying, but it's really true. And so what we did was we were very intentional. We always had a theme, right? Okay. And so I'm not going to say we're doing an amazing job at it, but we're getting better every single year in terms of what is our theme and why does that matter. And so the first year we talked about who, not how. And right, it's the name of a business book. You don't have to read it because it's got the perfect cover. And what I would tell people is look around this room right now. Take a moment and find the 2 or 3 faces that could be the next advisors around the table, so that you always have a new potential teammate, right? And kind of really instilled that over time. And then this meeting that kicked off the new year, we've been building on doing trends and mergers and acquisitions. So we really wanted to tap in new year, what's going to happen, right? So that's a good time when everybody wants to come back together and kind of get where am I going this year? Yeah. And so we reached out to other organizations like the American Mergers and Acquisitions, the AM&A group, and a couple other groups. There's a Women in M&A group and a couple other of those. And we just said, hey, we're putting this together. If you want to put somebody on a panel so you can share with this entire group, then let's all do this together. And it kind of snowballed from there.
It really was cool. They're on that same picture where you had people sitting on the windowsills. Yeah. I think you've always done a masterful job at collaborating with organizations, not just individuals, sharing the spotlight, and almost there's a sense of servant leadership as well. And so I think our chapters could really take a page out of the Wally book, if you will.
Sure.
Around saying if being a SEPA, if one of the three best-in-class elements of a certified exit planning advisor is, in fact, the ability to connect and collaborate with people, then how can we do that inside of our chapter networks and collaborate with other organizations? I think it's pretty cool.
No, I really appreciate that, and I feel very honored to be honored, for that, because I do feel like it is the job of the chapter president to look around the room and think, how can every one of these meetings help each of these individuals move their career and what they're doing for their clients forward, just incrementally, right? And so one of the other things that we've done, and it comes from the collaboration and peer sharing, right? A couple of years ago, Joe C2 was talking about how his chapter ran. And so we broke it down into a process, actually, and essentially said, we're going to borrow that forever and do it in Denver. Yeah. And one of the important things that they did was they started doing very intentional matchmaking. And so intentionality actually became our second year's theme. And the idea was, if there's, a lot of, we don't want wealth managers just having an extra intentional coffee with their competition. Right. If they want to mastermind together and do best practices and stuff like that, that's cool. But what we really want to do is create business triads and opportunities that may or may not exist. And so really kind of help drive that forward.
Yeah.
And I think that's important.
Absolutely. So, for EPI Denver, what is the next step? Like, what is the next big thing that you're most excited about in the next 12 months?
Oh, man. Our theme this year is community.
Okay.
So I really think it's all about, we have our normal 12 chapter meetings, and we've got a lot of variety there. Everything from locally sourced experts to national folks from the overall EPI who are coming in to speak. Yep. But we're also doing peer sharing to really help each other out and really model what we do here nationally. Yep. But the idea of community, when we were on the golf course, we were talking about how important it is to actually get to know fellow advisors as human beings, right? Yeah. So it's all about that for the next year.
So what kind of event? Are you doing anything specifically, or did we get charged up on the golf course and started talking about this? Because I truly believe that's really what this event that we're in right now at Summit Exploration is really all about, meeting people and like we can go have the cocktail at the cocktail hour. We can have the breakfast meeting, and we can learn about each other as technicians. Yeah. And we can start to develop a relationship. Yeah. But then when you have this human experience, something deeper, and it could be as simple as picking up some cornhole bags over there and laughing to have some fun. Right. Or for us, I honestly think it's such a simple thing that I think the audience and our listeners should take out of the Wally book, is that I'm like, hey man, I don't think I've seen you on the golf course, right? We always do the EPI golf outing, and you said, no, I don't actually really play a lot of golf, but if I'm going to go to the Exit Planning Summit, I just thought it was another chance to meet people in different ways. So how are you recreating that human experience, or even if it's in a visionary style right now, what is it going to happen? What's that going to look like at EPI Denver?
Yeah, so by far the one I'm most excited about is actually going back to, you think EPI is all about bringing success to significance, right? Yep. So when I wrote my book, Exitology, I talked about the difference between the gold miner and the gold miller. And the gold miner, we all know, just keep pounding 3 feet of gold, harder. Well, the gold miller is somebody who created generational value. And literally what happened in Idaho Springs, Colorado, is somebody zoomed out and said there's 108 gold mines, and they're all getting flooded. What if we built a gold mill and a tunnel from Central City down to Idaho Springs and milled that product into gold? Well, there's a Denver Mint.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's generational. Yeah. There is still a gold mill called the Argo Gold Mill that is sitting there today. You can go on a tour and take it and get your history lesson, but it's passed through and it's become the anchor of that entire town, which now there is the mighty Argo Cable Car Company. Wow. And it's going to start taking people up, and it's a living embodiment of this entire generational.
It's cool.
It's amazing. It's a great
analogy.
Yeah. So we're going to take the whole crew up there. Anybody that's an EPI chapter member,
super cool.
Let's go.
Yeah, we talked when we were on the golf course, we were talking about our new event coming up in February of 2027, our SEPA Mastery Winter Retreat. Yeah. So people that want to dive deep, and a part of that is we're looking to obviously dive deep into activation and implementation in 3 or 4 hour deep dive workshop style sessions. But then there's a whole 4 hour segment that is a human experience. And so you can go off and do a horseback ride, a fly fishing trip, a tour of the stockyards in Fort Worth, Texas, and again, meet people in a in maybe a deeper and more authentic way.
Yeah.
So I got to ask from now an award-winning SEPA, longtime a chapter president, somebody that's becoming more veteran of the space, believe it or not, right?
Believe it or not, yeah.
And what is your advice for first-time summit goers? And I've been asking all of our guests on the podcast this because in today's summit world, about 50% of the attendees here are first-time summit goers. It's become a really logical next step for new SEPA to say, look, I want to get immersed. So navigating this experience, whether it's in the classroom or at their summit exploration time or at one of the socials, what's your words of wisdom?
So find someone who has been there, whose future looks like where you think you're trying to go to, and intentionally speak with them. The thing about this community, I think of Dr. Craig West here, who's coming up soon. I think of Sean Hutchinson.
Yes.
Right. Some of the old guard. They are very generous with their time while they are here. And in fact, they are happy to have a 5-minute sidebar conversation. Ask that question, they can tell you what they wish they knew.
Yeah.
And that'll save you 5-10 years of your career trying to figure it out yourself. Like take the shortcut.
Yeah, fair. That's good advice. Well, Wally, again, congratulations. I really appreciate all you do here at the EPI community, and we'll be right back.
Are you a business owner seeking to unlock the true potential of your enterprise? Look no further than the second edition of Christopher Snider's revolutionary book, Walking to Destiny: 11 Actions an Owner Must Take to Rapidly Grow Value and Unlock Wealth. In this updated edition, Snider presents proven strategies for maximizing your company's value and accelerating growth. Whether you're aiming to sell or simply want to ensure long-term success, this book offers a blueprint for building a thriving, self-sustaining business. Walking to Destiny isn't just another book, it's a game changer, backed by Snider's own experience as a successful business owner and as a SEPA. This book bridges the gap between business owners and advisors, guiding you towards financial freedom. But don't just take our word for it. Hear from those whose lives have been transformed by its insights. One satisfied reader raves, "The best guide for transitioning out of privately owned companies. I recommend it to all business owners and advisors." Another praises it on its focus for maximizing business value, calling it their, quote, principal tool for educating owners. Ready to take control of your business's destiny? Visit walkingtodestiny.com now and use code EXITISNOW to claim your free copy of Walking to Destiny: 11 Actions an Owner Must Take to Rapidly Grow Value and Unlock Wealth. Don't wait for the perfect moment. Make the moment perfect by seizing this opportunity today.
Hey everybody, and welcome back to the Exit Is Now podcast. Hanging out now with Mr. Craig West, coming in from Sydney, Australia. How long is that flight again?
15 and a half hours to
15
Dallas
and a half,
and then up to here.
15 and a half hours. It's a hell of a trip. And you make it every year, once a year, to the Exit Planning Summit. You come here often.
Yeah,
But you make it a point to come to this Exit Planning Summit every year.
5 times last year, I think I came across to the US, but I never miss this.
Yeah, you never miss the summit.
No.
Well, I wanted to bring you on the Exit Is Now podcast because you're celebrating 15 years of being a certified exit planning advisor and a true pioneer, I think, of our industry. And can you tell me about how you're over in Sydney, Australia, and back when you became a SEPA, you probably came to Chicago, right? You probably came to a Chicago-based program. Yeah. And you probably had maybe, 20 people in your class?
Yeah, 20, something like that. Yeah,
20
absolutely.
people in your class.
Yeah.
So how did you find EPI? How did you know we existed over here?
I did a pretty detailed, online search. I rang everyone I knew, and somehow or other, EPI came up there. I mean, it was a pretty small organization back then.
Yeah.
And so, I actually had a call with Dennis Gano.
Who used to be the executive director here.
Yeah, who was the executive director back then. And he convinced me to come across to Chicago. And I thought, okay, well, it's not that far. I'll go across.
15 hours later.
I spent a week.
Yeah.
I had a great time. I met your dad there. That was the first time.
Yep.
Pete Chrisman, and a few other key people.
Yep.
Sean Hutchinson was there.
Yep.
And so, I loved it.
Yeah.
And straight away decided this is what I'm going to do. And so I was telling the group that I was with today, I stopped doing accounting work almost instantly.
Yeah.
And started doing exit planning work. And so I left Chicago. I spent 15 hours on the plane on the way home. I wrote down, and I found the other day, I sent a mind map to your dad and Peter Chrisman.
Really?
In 2011, with a bit of a mind map. It had 15 steps and 5 stages to do an exit plan. thought, here's what you need to do for an exit plan. I sent it through to them. They emailed me back and said, yeah, that looks good. What about this? Add that, change this. And so that's how I started. And, fundamentally changed my business, the operating model, what I was doing, the clients I was doing it for, and really changed my life journey. Like I've been doing this now for 15, 16 years.
Yeah,
It's changed everything.
And you mentioned while I think you were on stage during one of our panels on Sunday, you mentioned that, is it 1,000 exits? What did you?
Yeah. We've done about 980 in Australia.
980.
So we're about to get to 1,000. Yeah.
And so tell me about that journey. How has that changed over the 15-year period for you over, and really not just in the exit planning institute world, but really in Australia? How's that shaped exits?
Yeah, I think Australia is a little bit behind the United States in terms of the knowledge. You look at the State of Owner Readiness Survey, and exit planning is now well known. People know what it is. It is known in Australia largely because, as I said to you, I think there's 34 CEPAs in Australia. 20 of them work for me. Right? So I spent a lot of time and effort making it known and talking about it.
Yeah.
But so now owners understand what is exit planning and why do I need to do it and what is it about. So my role has changed from actually educating them about what it is to showing how to do it.
And
I've got a huge advantage because we've got this massive number of people that have done it.
Yeah.
So I meet clients all the time. I met a client a couple of weeks ago before I left Australia, and he said, I don't know if this is worth it. I said, listen, I'll give you 100 phone numbers of clients that I've worked with. You can ring anyone you want. They'll tell you whether it's worth it or not. Mm-hmm. And as soon as I said that, he said, okay, you don't need to do that.
Yeah, right.
Because I get it.
So how are you finding your clients? We talked a lot this morning at the Exit Planning Summit about activating ourselves, right? Changing our language and approach, embracing collaboration, and then certainly being lifelong learners. So when you go back home and you embrace something like the Exit Planning Summit, how are you executing and bringing people together, and how are you getting new clients? Is it kind of similar to here?
It is similar to here, and I think it's doing the things that a lot of people aren't prepared to do.
Okay.
Right. So I fly around the world and speak at conferences, which is really lovely and glamorous. I also speak at breakfast events for the local Chamber of Commerce in some suburban place in Western Sydney where there's 8 people turn up.
Yeah, right.
But I still do it.
Yeah.
And I will always do it because that's what you have to do what we do. Now, I tell this story all the time. I went to regional Queensland. It's boiling hot. And I spoke at this breakfast. It must have been, 45 degrees Celsius, not Fahrenheit, but boiling hot. I'm at breakfast. There's 8 people there. I was told there was going to be 30 people there, but people pulled out as they do. I get up and talk. One of the guys that was in that room has been my biggest client ever.
Wow.
Had I not bothered to do that,
Exactly.
or had I said, you know what, I'm not speaking at a breakfast for 8 people, I can't be bothered to do that.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't work. So I think you've just got to be disciplined and structured and do the things that we all know work.
Yeah.
About 50% of our clients come from referrals. So we get referrals from CPAs, financial advisors, business coaches, and now we get a lot of referrals from existing clients.
Yeah.
Because what we know is clients hang around with clients. That business owners hang around with business owners.
100%.
They're similar age, similar habits, similar interests like golf or whatever it might be. So we get a lot of work from referrals, but you've still got to be out there and do the work.
So take me on the journey a little bit from the 15 years, right? I was talking to Doug Dickey about this too, who's also part of the class of 2010. And when you guys became SEPA, there was no walking to destiny. There was no value acceleration methodology. You mentioned earlier on the show that you actually went back and said, okay, sounds really conceptual. And you're kind of like my dad, right? Systematic. So you're saying, how can I create this 5 stages and this 15-step process that embraces some of these core concepts that I just learned while sitting in the classroom in Chicago? So you started there, and now we're here. We have podcasts. We have 80 partners out here that want to work with certified exit. It's totally has revolutionized the profession. So what is some of the big takeaways that you've had over the last 15 years have you seen and really been a part of pioneering this profession?
Yeah, and I love creating new things.
Yeah.
But I'm very structured. I've got a accounting background.
Yeah.
I've done 2 master's degrees and a doctoral thesis. So I've got an academic sort of rigor around research and statistics and data. And so that's, I built the process because what I knew was it was never going to be just me doing exit planning.
Right.
I was going to build a business, a real business.
And a business that
And,
could transfer.
luckily I've been able to do that.
Yeah.
And you can't do that without system and process and discipline. And so the structure, now I think we're so much better off. We've got the value acceleration model. We've got so many books. Like you look at the books that are around here.
Yeah.
I've seen 10 or 12 already. And so there's a lot more information, there's a lot more data, there's a lot more know-how. And I don't think there's any one particular way that has to be the best way or the only way, but you have to have a way.
Yeah.
You can't just go out and make it up as you go. I actually said to the group today, you know, one of the risks for this profession is people think they're artists.
Yeah.
And they want to create some new. I had a guy in Australia the other day. He said to me, "Oh, you got this 21-step thing. Do you mind if I make it 23?"
Yeah.
I said, "What for?
Right.
21 works.
Yeah.
Why do you want 23? You can make 23 if you want. I don't really care.
Right.
But let's just get something that we know works, that's provable, testable, that delivers the right client outcome. And then the job then is just do it more and more and more and more. And so now it's not even about doing it from a consulting firm. Now it's about a software platform that anyone can use anywhere in the world to do it, which is really cool.
Absolutely.
You know, that's been sort of the evolution over that period of, okay, walking out of Chicago, and I literally went to the airport thinking, wow, that is so cool. And then I went, but I don't know what to do.
Exactly. That's how
I don't have a tool.
Yeah.
I don't have a methodology. There was no value accelerator. I have to work that out. And secondly, I didn't have a marketing machine. I didn't have content. I didn't have anything to do to go and create clients. So really the plane trip home was, how do I create clients and a marketing funnel and all of that? And how do I create a methodology and a process that I can use?
So sitting here 15 years later now, what are you most excited about? If you had to look out for the next 15 years, what really is exciting, both for you as a practitioner working towards those 1,000 exits, but also as somebody that I think a lot of people in our community look to model. I think you're an inspiration to many. So what are you most excited about in the future of exit planning?
I think the key thing for me, when I think back, and 980 exits is a lot, but there's some in that journey that I remember so well.
Yep.
And I just remember that the outcome matters.
It does, yeah.
It really, really matters for the owner.
Yes.
Forget us, forget making a business and making money and methodology and software. That's all cool. It's great. It matters for the owner.
Absolutely.
And it matters for the owner's family, and it matters for the community they work in.
Yeah.
It matters for their employees.
Right.
And I reckon if you can do that work every day, it's pretty cool.
So go back to this summit, right? You fly over here 15 hours every year to come back for the summit. Some more boards of advice, if you will. When about 50% of our summit goers in today are first-time summit goers, as you can probably imagine your first summit back in the day.
Yep.
What would be your words of advice? People are just coming out of the SEPA program. This is their logical next step. How do I navigate this experience?
Yeah, I think my lesson, and the reason I come back every year, apart from hanging out with you guys and drinking bourbon with your dad and doing all that cool stuff, but the reason I come back every year is you have to be all in.
Yeah.
Right? You can't do something half-assed.
Yes.
Right? It doesn't work.
Right.
So if you're going to be all in, you have to be all in. You have to come to these things. I mean, I was in Denver 6 months ago. I went to Wally's. I went to the chapter meeting where people are sitting on the window. I walked in there and just went, "Whoa, what goes on here?" So I think if you're going to be involved in a community, if you're going to be involved in a profession, you have to be all in.
Yeah.
And the summit is all in. I walked in here the other day and just went, "Whoa," because the first summit I went to wasn't even called a summit then. It was in Fort Lauderdale. There's about 45 people there.
Remember that? Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
It's incredible. There were more people playing golf the other day than were at that entire event.
Summit.
Right?
Yeah, exactly.
So now you look at it and say, there's a lot of people here, and there's a lot of smart people here. There's a lot of people that have been doing this for a long time.
Right.
There's a lot of people that have got software or tools or know-how that we should all use. And I learn every single year. I've never, ever come here without taking pages and pages and pages of notes. I sit in on workshops. I sat in on a workshop last year. You came up to me and said, "What are you doing here?" It was a workshop about how to put the value acceleration methodology into practice.
Right.
And I just said, you can always learn something.
Exactly.
The day you stop learning, you're kidding. So I think if you're a new SEPA, dive in, get all in, get involved, go to everything you can, do a bit of the Wally thing. Wally came and played golf because he wanted to hang around with people.
Exactly.
Not because he was a great golfer, but that's not what he did it for.
I think what you're seeing for our audience here and our listeners back home is every guest so far has truly leaned in to the best-in-class elements of a SEPA, and you're talking about it right now. Number one, I think what makes SEPA different than non-SEPAs is that we're truly invested in lifelong learning. In fact, I always say that I believe guys like you are always a step ahead of the market. Two, you guys love collaboration. You love combining as teams, learning from each other, referring in work, and the third element is that you've changed your language and approach to embrace value acceleration. So, Craig, I'm always super appreciative to hang out with you, and always appreciative of your passion in the industry and for business owners. And so thank you for everything that you've done over those 15 years for the Exit Planning Institute and even for the Snider family. I really appreciate what you've done.
Pleasure. We've had a good time doing it.
We've had a great time doing it. All right, guys, stay tuned. We'll be back. Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the Exit is Now podcast, Summit Edition, sitting with our 2026 Exit Planner of the Year, Renee Russo. Again, congratulations on all of the work that you've done in your whole career. Your story yesterday, I guess that would have been, your story was super motivational and super inspiring. And congratulations on the last 12 months. You've been pretty busy. So tell me about the work that you've been doing over the last 12 months. You have the Exit Mentor Group. You've been writing books. You're all over social media. You're building your practice. Kind of tell us what you've been up to over the last 12 months.
Thank you, Scott. It's such a pleasure and an honor to have this level of recognition. I don't do it for the recognition, but I recognize that in order to affect change, I need to be seen, heard, and understood.
Yep.
So I take all of this with a lot of humility. It just is a necessary part of the process. When I'm not pushing things out to the world, I'm working intimately with my clients, and I'm learning very intentionally from them, because I do not want to spend 15 years figuring out intelligent ways to have meaningful impact upon the lives of business owners and their family. So every conversation, I'm obsessing about the details of what I learned. And I come from the business operating system space. And so I know what a business in a box practice model looks like. I used to develop EOS implementers.
Yeah.
So I had this idea in my mind around this turnkey solution that is not just backed by a tech platform, but able to be replicated by any value growth advisor who's a CEPA, who's committed to excellence and wants to create a scalable practice.
Right.
So I've been working on that methodically in the background. What helps me with that, in addition to client experiences, is peer-based learning. So I leverage the peer group, Exit Mentor, to accelerate learning, unlock insights, and then apply that back into my practice. And I encourage everybody else in that community to do that too. I think that the path to acceleration for practice builders is peer-based mentorship. So I've been working really hard working on the practice model, but also building this community to create that level of exponential impact for my peers.
So the other thing that happened in the last 12 months or so is that you've been appointed to the Thought Leadership Council, these 6 CEPAs as we've been hearing throughout the summit, that are stewarding the methodology into the future. So I think an appropriate question is what excites you about the future of the Exit Planning Institute, the exit planning profession, and the future of the methodology?
Mm-hmm. I think one of the things that I've learned is when something works, you don't need to screw with it. So I feel this very protective energy around protecting the method that already works and focusing on the mastery through the execution. So I really want to bridge that gap between the science of the methodology and help more people understand what it looks like in practice, because I recognize that value advisors don't have a lot of working examples from peers other than your dad and a few others that have been around for a while. So I want to break down the barriers to execution and be an example on that Thought Leadership Council around what the value advisor can look like, and use that as a starting place for conversations to help them realize their potential. So I feel like because we have a population deficit of value advisors in the community, I'm looking forward to really right-sizing the balance of the CPAs, wealth managers, and value advisors. So I'm excited about the future of growth in that category. I'm also excited about modernization of the way, not the method, changing the method itself, but how we deliver it to the market, and staying very progressive, using things like AI as a vehicle to break down all the complexity and drive execution. We all know that the value's in the prepare gate. So I'm like thinking about new and innovative ways to make the discover gate so simple that within weeks we can be in the prepare gate. So I'm looking at simplification in the delivery, right sizing the population, and really thinking about planting the needs, wants, and desires of the business owner front and center, because most of our community haven't been that stuck business owner. And so I feel like bringing more of the soul of that into the work by osmosis with intention, I think can help us as a community gain more trust, speak the language of the business owner, gain more trust, and ultimately create more impact. So I'm excited.
One of the other topics that you and I typically jive on when we're hanging out, you were just in Cleveland doing podcasts with us as well. And we talk a lot about personal planning. And I think that it's a core topic here at this year's Exit Planning Summit. Tomorrow when I'm on stage, I open up a whole main stage session with a personal planning panel. We call it the most overlooked leg of the stool. Can you kind of talk to your, perhaps I would say, a shared passion for helping break down complexity for the professional advisor? What does personal planning look like? And therefore break down complexity with business owners so they can adopt and start actively working on their personal plans as well as their business plan and financial plan.
It is the most important leg of the stool, and it has a lot of sensitivity around it. So it tends to be something that we come to later once we've demonstrated value and built trust with the business owner. But I think that the more business owners get educated and the more they see their friends, baby boomers, for example, their friends had a heart attack before they sold their business, or they sold their company and then they weren't well enough to live their best life. I feel like the personal planning piece is becoming a really important conversation that we're having earlier. Now, the conversation is nice, but I'm an execution expert. So I'm thinking, what do we do about that? It's nice to have those conversations, ask those questions, but we're going to actually change their lives through taking action. So using proven methodologies, foundational playbooks that really integrate the personal planning into the practice is important. So systemizing that, standardizing that, I think is key. The most important thing I think we as CEPAs can do is listen to those stories of founders who hit rock bottom, who went through hard things, and really be able to share those stories with their existing clients who maybe are not feeling backed against the wall or not feeling like they have to do that work now, but give them insights as to why it's important. I have a saying that says, if you don't matter, nothing matters. As a business owner, this is the number one thing we can impart upon them and help them remember that they matter. I feel the more successful they are in business, the more deficit they tend to have personally. And I want to right size that balance. I experienced the personal cost of putting the business before myself, putting the business above my children. And when things got tough, I lost everything. So we experienced a lot of negative impacts as a family. I want to take care of families. And so I need to help business owners understand that their business and their personal life are not separate.
Business is personal.
Business is personal. And they are at the core of everything. So if they're doing the work themselves, every stakeholder group around them will benefit. Because business is personal.
So the next 12 months are going to be a lot of fun. We're going to be spending a lot of. I joked with Renee earlier because I said she might have to get like an apartment in Cleveland because she lives in Vancouver, Canada.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a lot of trips over to Cleveland to kind of roll out the 2026 Exit Planner of the Year campaign. And so I think for a lot of us in the CEPA community, when we look to the Exit Planner of the Year, somebody like Amy Wirtz or Joe C2 over the last couple of years, we look at something that we want to model. And you were just over at the author showcase, and what I found interesting this year is that there's 2 or 3 partners and sponsors out in our exhibit hall that help thought leaders like you take and kind of put together their thoughts inside of a book. What was your book writing experience like?
In all honesty, I wrote the book because I didn't have time to explain my method to people. People started to notice that my life was still awful, but I seemed to be thriving.
Okay.
And they were like, well, you're still not speaking to your kids? And like, how are you okay? And I'm like, well, I'm just practicing energy management. I have a vision. I know what I need to do to get there. And I'm just focusing on being the best version of myself every day and trusting the 90-day process.
Right.
They're like, can you show me that? And so I started to do that, and I was running out of time. Then I formed working groups and one to many. And then I realized I was going to run out of time of that as well. So I said, I'm just going to put it in a book.
Yeah.
And make it DIY.
Yeah.
All the tools are downloadable. And so there's a lady here, her name's Carla. She's like, I have given your book out to like 100 people. And I
Very
was
cool,
like,
right?
what?
Very cool.
She's like, oh yeah, you're changing lives all over. I'm like, I had no idea. So writing a book was a vehicle for exponential impact.
Yep.
What I did also is I recognized that my personal brand and message wasn't kind of keeping up with that. So I got ahead of myself and said, who am I? How do I want to be remembered in the market 5 years from now?
Right.
And I recognized that the book was part of that, but the story needed to be clearer. So I feel like all CEPAs are needing now more than ever to become whole with themselves, embrace their identity, not worry about differentiating themselves or competing, but stand out, because so much of our work and intelligence used to be in, valuations and reports and things like that. And now AI can do all that for us.
Right.
So the human must show up, and we have to humanize this work. And so therefore we need to be doing our work. The book writing process, anybody who's written a book would say it's the greatest therapy project and a really great way for you to go inward to move through those stages of self-definition. And by the time the book is written, you will notice that you have evolved significantly as a person, as I'm sure you're experiencing now.
Yeah. I think I alluded to it on the stage. I've been writing myself, and I want to create this book that's all around helping employees think more like owners and this more value creator mindset for the employee. But I haven't thought about it that way, but it has been like a very therapeutic kind of session for me to kind of reflect back on our career at EPI and how we've done what we've done over the last 5 years, so that we can go out and share that more systematically with both owners and employees that look to run on a more value acceleration centric lifestyle. What did you do though? Did you like go to the beach like my dad did? Are you sitting at your kitchen table at like 1 a.m. like I am? How did you write?
Oh, I recognized I'm not a writer. And it turns out you can be an author and not a writer at the same time.
Yep.
So I got curious about how I could take my gift of articulation, verbalization, into a book. And I found a publishing company that would allow me to record verbally my book.
Interesting.
And then transcribe it and then help me wash it, clean it, and make it ready to look and sound like a book. So you'll read in my book, it sounds like I'm speaking it.
Yeah.
And that was important to me because that's my mother tongue. That's how I communicate. I'm not a natural writer.
Yeah.
My brother is a writer. I got the voice part. So, and that way I was able to feel authentic in the process. Then people have said to me, what about Audible? And I was like, whoa, I'm still getting caught up to this fact that I'm an author now, because what happens, I found, and many people have said the same thing, you haven't had a baby yet yourself. But when you go from being a pregnant woman to a mother of this being that is outside of you, there's this process that happens, and there's this in-between stage where you're no longer the pregnant woman and haven't figured out how to be a mom yet. And so I've been hanging around in that space as an author for about 12 months. It's like people are talking to me like I'm an author, but I haven't really figured out what that means. And I still feel like I'm writing the book. Even though the book's now on Amazon.
Yeah, right.
So it's a bit of an identity piece. What I do think is that thought leadership is very important now. People can't tell often whether something is an AI video or the source of things. And so when you can become embodied as an author and become a thought leader and show up in the world on LinkedIn and other platforms as your authentic self, it all starts to add up and it creates a lot of impact. The book will not create the impact alone. You need to also show up. And that in itself is a process of self-re-identification.
That's great. That's a great words of wisdom. So in closing on our podcast here today at the summit, I've been asking all of our guests who are award winners or 15-year CEPAs, people inducted into the Exit Planning Hall of Fame, our Circle of Excellence, the summit these days is about 50% first-time summit goers, and so it's become just a logical next step on the growth path for a certified exit planning advisor. Navigating the summit experience, taking all this stuff and putting it back into practice when you get home. What are your words of wisdom for first-time summit goers here today?
I just ran a panel with Jesse Abercrombie and Joe C2, and I found there was a bit of a thread in the conversation. And what we identified was the importance of stepping into your own identity. Don't try to be like anybody else. Just be your authentic self. Also, practice vulnerability. You don't need to have it all figured out. You just need to ask the right questions. And so being willing to be brave enough to talk with a business owner, ask them good questions and say, I don't have this all figured out, but I have a proven methodology and I'd like to work with you to unlock value and help create impact in your life to move you towards your end game, whatever that might be. The right type of business owner who truly is ready, willing, and able to receive your help will absolutely say yes to that opportunity. And then you just learn alongside them. And then you take what you learn from them and the methodology and embed a basic practice, model, and process that you then can start replicating. But I would say at the beginning, it's a little bit of faking it till you make it. But you're backed with a proven method and a book to stand by and a community who's proven the level of impact that is possible. And I think with real conversations and good questions, you can get going immediately.
Well, I really appreciate you, and I look forward to spending the next 12 months hanging out. You're going to be on the cover of the annual Exit magazine next January when it comes out. Multiple different pieces of content that will come out so our audience that's listening in or here with us at the Exit Planning Summit. Multiple ways to interact with Renee over the next 12 months, and we really look forward to it. I appreciate all that you do. Thanks.
It'll be the real me, not a bot, not an AI. It'll be genuinely me, and I'm looking forward to helping. Thank
Thanks,
you.
Renee. We'll see you guys next time.